What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Bladen Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. Today, we are sitting down with co-host of the Ringer NFL show and curator for the Ringer's QB rankings, Mr. Steven Ruiz. We're going to talk about Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence. But before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube, join the chalkboard, all those things. Follow us on Instagram. And if you're not, add us on Snapchat, because Stay Hot is now available on Snapchat, all for some exclusive content. The Instagram is at Stay Hot BW, and if you just go on Snapchat and look up Stay Hot, you should be able to find us. But before we get to that, Matt, Theo, Steven, how are you guys doing today?
Not to trauma dump on you or get political right away, but
it's fine.
I tested positive for COVID yesterday. So everyone will have to excuse the fact that I sound like Chris Collinsworth right now.
I'm actually the one that gave Theo COVID, so wow. I have it too.
Oh, come on.
Synergy.
The COVID episode. I took the test yesterday, and they've got when you take it, there's the control line and the test line. I took it, and it's supposed to take 15 minutes to develop. I swabbed my nose and I put the drops in. Within 15 seconds, it gave me the most defined and thickest positive line I've ever seen in my life. They're like, brother, you have make no mistake, you have got this bug. So I
tested positive around Christmas and I got the same thing. It was within a second. It was you definitely have it, dude.
They're like, bro, evacuate, quarantine, do whatever you like, make no mistake. So I feel like shit a little bit. I feel a little bit better now. I was about to ask,
you were not able to do our live yesterday because you were just completely cooked. Are you feeling a little bit better now, Theo?
I'm feeling a little bit better. I've popped 10 Tylenols and we'll see how my liver is. My liver is feeling bad, but my brain is feeling better. So
okay,
we'll
be
all right.
The brain fog is gone. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I'm gonna start pushing Joe Burrow praise left and right now that my brain is fried.
Theo's not thinking straight. Thinks Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the NFL.
Bro, he's got the it factor. You're not, bro. Anyway,
yeah. I mean, Theo, you put out a poll yesterday. Got over 13,000 votes. Who would you rather have for the next decade? Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow? And it started out, a lot of people were voting for Trevor Lawrence, but it was very close, and Joe Burrow ended up coming out on top at the very end.
What was the percentage on that?
It's 53 to 47 roughly.
That's pretty
close. It's still pretty close.
At first, I thought people were voting for Lawrence as a joke, even though I think it's a valid take. I thought originally, because it originally started the first couple hundred votes are just my followers. It was 80-20 Lawrence versus Burrow. I was all right. But then Lawrence really did have some staying power. And really, it turned into a poll and a conversation really worth having. After these first two games is the two number one overall picks, the two generational prospects, Lawrence or Burrow. And it seems kind of maybe not unfathomable, but only 2 weeks into the season to get these results is pretty shocking, or maybe not shocking, but surprising to me, because it would be 95-5 if I did this last week. So Steven, you've got the quarterback rankings. You've got Burrow at 10 and Lawrence at 12, I believe. You follow me. You voted on the poll. Where do you fall on this debate?
I voted for Lawrence. And I feel if you read everything that was written about Burrow this offseason, and then you just watch those two, they're all 22 from this past week, you would think that all that stuff was written about Trevor Lawrence, because he's playing like everyone says Joe Burrow plays, hitting the back of his drop, the ball comes out immediately. With Joe Burrow, it's the opposite. My comparison to Joe Burrow right now is he's like Russell Wilson, but taller, and he doesn't have the arm. It's just explosives down the sideline, or he's scrambling, and no in between.
Yeah, it's really interesting. These first 2 weeks, the Bengals are one of the worst teams in the league at beating man coverage. They versus cover one looks on Sports Info Solutions. I think they're the third worst team in EPA versus those looks, which just makes no sense considering the weapons they have. And I get that some of their wide receivers have missed some time, but they still have Chase. It's just been crazy to watch this Bengals offense. And I guess today at a press conference where he basically said the Aaron Rodgers RELAX relax thing. I don't know how much of the Bengals offense you've watched all 22 wise this year, but do you actually think they can just turn it around and it's a slow starter, or do you think last year was a little fluky and the regression is going to look like this all year?
I think it's tough to say because it's kind of like the Mahomes thing last year where he has to change his nature to want to make plays and not take the underneath stuff. I've watched both games and both teams played a lot of cover 2 and they gave him those hole shots and he didn't really take them. And then I think it was the last possession of the first half of the Cowboys game. The Bengals come out, Cowboys are in cover 2 again, Tampa 2. They call 2 straight cover 2 beaters and Burrow takes the underneath option. And it's like, okay, if you can do this 10 more times and get down the field, great. Next play, he has the underneath option open. He tries to scramble and make a play, takes a sack, drive over. I don't know. It's tough. Is he going to be able to change who he is? It's a big question.
But we've seen Burrow be super accurate and super consistent at hitting that stuff at LSU. I mean, that was kind of the big scouting report on him, is that he was really consistent and super accurate on that short and intermediate stuff. So I wonder how much of it's Burrow and how much of it's Zach Taylor. I'm thinking a little bit of both.
I think it's certainly Taylor. I think Taylor's the biggest problem. He's not making things easy on Joe Burrow. I don't think he made things easy on Joe Burrow last year, but defenses have adjusted, and it's tough to ask your, third year quarterback to come up with answers, to come up with a plan B to what defenses are doing to you. And it seems like Zach Taylor has no answers at all. This is the same offense we saw last year. And the fact that we heard Joe Burrow say, we're going to see more 2-man this year. We have to adjust to it. And they have no new answers. I think that goes on the coaching staff to me.
It for sure does. And I was listening to Ollie Connolly talk on the Athletic podcast. He brought up a point also that I hadn't really thought of before, but I also wonder now, since he brought this up, so credit to him, I didn't think of this, but how much of that is Burrow's preference and how much input does he have and how much, like, is he comfortable with running something different? Like, I feel like the Bengals, which are this historically poverty organization, look to Burrow, their savior, to almost like have input on almost every single little thing. And I wonder if like the lack of play action and turning his back to the defense and like, I wonder if he wants to avoid that and wants to keep running, the same stuff because that's what he's most comfortable with, and how much his input, like if it's not all Zach Taylor and it's somewhat, Burrow not wanting to change. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I think that's part of it too. And it's impossible to be able to tell how much of it is just being on the outside looking in. But it seems like the offense is molded to Burrow's liking. And I guess he insists on being in charge of the protection calls. He's not very good at it. Like, he's good for a young player, but they give up a lot of free rushers. And I think it's on the quarterback not seeing stuff and not shifting the protection. And sometimes it's like easy stuff that I can recognize. I mean, I have the benefit of all 22, but if I can recognize it, like, Burrow should be able to recognize it, right? Or the coaching staff should step in. So we gave Zach Taylor credit for doing some of the LSU stuff, but there comes a point where you have to have some input and you have to protect a guy from himself because he is just a 24-year-old quarterback. And I don't think the Bengals have done that at all.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that the offensive line has looked quite bad despite, everyone talked about, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They're not going to have the Super Bowl hangover because they made all these additions to the offensive line. But, I mean, they look terrible. I mean, it looks almost worse than it did last year.
Yeah, and I think that kind of just goes back to Taylor and his system just not working on early downs because pass rush just has it easier on 3rd and long. It's just easier to get pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's what we're seeing, like in neutral situations, like early downs where they could run or pass. I think the offensive line has been just fine. It's when it's obvious that the Bengals are passing, and when they get into the gun, you can pretty much book that they're passing the ball. Defenses are just teeing off on them, and they can, because the offense is so siloed between like the under center stuff and the shotgun stuff, I feel like it's easier for a team like the Cowboys who have Micah Parsons, who they can move around anywhere on the front, to just pick a matchup because they know it's a pass. Or
the Steelers. They've got kind of a rough go of it with pass rushes these first 2 weeks. Yeah, I agree. I think I would vote Lawrence as well, just when you look at, Burrow kind of generating some of these sacks as himself. And yeah, the overall arm strength. But maybe talk a little bit more about like, these are Burrow's short. We all know Burrow's strengths. We saw him last year, right? So I feel like we don't have to dwell. Like, obviously Burrow does some good things, but he does have weaknesses that are showing up this year. Last year we saw, all the problems kind of hemorrhage for Trevor Lawrence and maybe his weaknesses with accuracy because he was playing in a horrible system. the worst situation I think I've ever seen. But this year, now that there's actually some stuff going for them at Jacksonville, what have you noticed from Lawrence and what it really has you excited about him going forward and thinking that he could even be better than Burrow over these next, couple years?
I think my biggest question was timing from last year. Like the accuracy stuff, I mean, it was apparent that it was an issue, but I don't think it was that big of an issue. I thought it was more like what was going on around him. His receivers just weren't getting separation, and that's when you tend to see inaccurate throws. But the timing this year, it's Herbert-esque, and I'm not going to throw that comparison around like lightly, especially this last Colts game. I mean, it was the second third down of the first drive. He gets from 1 to 2 to 3 in like a second, and the ball is out. And that's stuff you don't see from a second-year quarterback, and it was stuff we weren't seeing from Lawrence last year. And over the first 2 weeks, it's there. I still have question marks about the offensive line if we're talking about like long-term viability for this season. But if they protect if they protect Lawrence, I mean, I could see him ending the year as a top 10 quarterback, and I think that will be like a consensus, not like fans of Lawrence like me and you. It would be like everyone will accept that he's a top 10 quarterback, because that was the one issue, was timing, and I think he has it down now.
I am trying to see how many sacks he has taken. He's taken 2 sacks this year. And I know I watched that Washington game, and Daron Payne was killing him. Montez Sweat led the league in pressures after his first week. And Jonathan Allen got his a little bit. And he only took 2 sacks. All right. Burrow's taken 6 in each of the last 2 games. Right. And it's not like this Jaguars offensive line is like miles better. In fact, from a talent standpoint, it might be even worse. But like, yeah, his pocket movement is so unreal. It's like, it's watching him is like, I'm like, he's got spider senses or something. It's like, how the fuck did you know that guy was over there? So like that kind of poise, and he came from that RPO system in Clemson where he ran so much bullshit, that the fact that he's like processing like this and has this kind of pocket presence and like looking like a real quarterback on top of the arm strength and like the physical gifts that he has. He's like 6'6" and fast. Like it really could be special, and I think we saw it against the Colts. Bladen, I don't know, who did you vote for in my poll?
I originally voted for Burrow, but then like the more I thought about it, I was like, shit, that might have been the wrong choice. Burrow has not looked good. And like, so what after that, I went and pulled the consensus quarterback rankings from my website. And Steven, if you don't know, I have this like quiz on my website where you can just like vote for each quarterback.
Oh yeah, I've done that before. Yeah.
Okay. In the consensus rankings, Burrow came in at number 7. Trevor came in at 17, which I think that's like kind of mind-boggling. It's like roughly 3,000 entries on that, and I'm like,
but it's still catching up a little bit, right?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I would wonder how much of those.
Well, I reset it before the season started, so this is fresh, relatively speaking.
In a little while, he'll start to move up. It's, his rookie year was rough, and then he's played 2 games and he's looked good, but give people a little time.
I will say that like we talk about, Zach Taylor not doing enough to help Burrow. The difference that Doug Peterson, I think, makes in Jacksonville is very apparent. And also the fact that they have real wide receivers now, and everyone's like, oh, well, they overpaid for Christian Kirk. Don't care. He's like a real wide receiver. He knows how to like settle in zone and run routes properly. Right. It's
Laviska Shenault. Has Laviska Shenault played a snap in
No, he can't even get on the field.
It's okay. I forgot about him. I just remembered that. Is he hurt?
Yeah, their best receiver last year was Laquan Treadwell.
No, he's just not good.
Okay,
he's the Taysom Hill of receivers. He's the Taysom Hill.
Oh man, yeah. It's really been night and day, and the Jaguars in general. I mean, we'll talk about the Colts here in that Colts versus Jaguars game, but I mean the Jaguars thoroughly beat the Colts, and their run defense was I never can pronounce his name. Falaransu Fatukasi, I believe his name is. I mean, he's been wrecking shop these first 2 weeks. Trayvon Walker is just a beast. Like, they are the number 1 team right now in EPA per attempt against the run. They have the best run defense in the league, and I think they can sustain that with the bodies they have. And if you have a quarterback that can look top 10 by the end of this, like, I think they win this division. And I guess that kind of brings us to the next thing, which is the Colts, and if they could turn it around. And that's kind of my answer, is like, I don't think they're going to catch the Jaguars, which is weird to say. But like this week, they've played obviously 2 pretty like bottom feeder teams from last year, the Texans and the Jaguars. They haven't come away with it with a win, but they've had a lot of key injuries: Darius Leonard, Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce. Is this a team? They're not 0-2. They avoided the 0-2 graveyard or whatever.
But
they are 1-1. They are winless. This is a team that I know a lot of people were high on. But after watching the first 2 weeks, Steven, do you think that they are just completely fraudulent? Are you ready to totally write them off? Or do you think they can turn it around and win a weaker division?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to give up on them. I think it's like Matt Ryan just landed on the Falcons again. Another bad offensive line. He's got Gus Bradley at defensive coordinators, basically Dan Quinn. That division has been won by the team that wins in the trenches for like the last 5 years. And I think the reason why that is because all the teams have been bad, and doing the easy stuff is how to win games against them. And I would say the Jaguars have the best offensive line, defensive line combination right now, at least how they're playing through 2 weeks. And I would say they have the best quarterback.
Yeah, I'd agree. I worry about where the explosives are going to ever come from. Like even when they get their receivers back, like
right, yeah.
Michael Pittman's good, but like he doesn't have like the elite number one type of juice. And Matt Ryan, I mean, some of the throws that he was making,
awful.
I mean, they looked like beach balls out there, which is never a good sign. And like, I get that he has a lot go, like number 69, their left tackle. I watched Josh Allen like dip his shoulder and went around the edge like 3 or 4 times in a row against
Matt
that
Pryor.
guy.
Yeah, he's
Matt
terrible.
Pryor. Yeah. So we'll see, but I just worry about where the explosive plays are going to come from. Matt and Bladen, I know that the Colts were your division winners in this horrible AFC South. Do you still feel like they can eke it out of the Titans and Jaguars?
I'm not giving Matt Ryan the pass. I'm afraid for the bad offensive line. Like, yes, it's not good, but it also doesn't help when your quarterback, like, he's in crumple mode where if there's a pass rush, he's too old to possibly try to maneuver around the pocket consistently. And
he did the self-sack thing, like the Eli Manning. Like, nah, you don't even have to touch me.
Just give
so
up.
At least if they had Wentz out there, I hate to say this, but if they had Wentz out there, at least he'd be trying to move around and make plays. I could tell you where the bad turnovers would come from, but I can also tell you where the explosive would come from. You know, with Ryan, I don't think he puts you in a position to have a winning passing game. And I think that Ryan was overrated as a trade for them. I mean, is Pittman and Matt Ryan and a bad offensive line going to be a positive passing game? No. And it's not. And I mean, if the passing game's like that and you're giving Jonathan Taylor 4 carries a game or whatever they gave him, 2 carries a game. Yeah,
they gave him 5. I think he had 5 rushes for 5 yards in the first half of this one.
The Colts saying that they didn't want Jonathan Taylor to lead the league in touches again, and they wanted like Nyheim Hines to
wide
be
receiver
like
Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, to be the focal point of
yeah.
their passing game. And like, yeah, it's just not working out. I thought they'd be a playoff team. I just released my power rankings for this week, and I put them at 27. I think they look terrible, and I don't think they can turn it around at all.
I saw somebody put them at 32. I don't remember
that's
who
wrong.
that was.
I think that's wrong.
That's a little wrong.
That's wrong.
I had a minus 18 by them. They went down 18 spots to 32, which I thought was a little extreme, but
yeah,
I saw
it's a little much.
I saw a odds of the first coach fired, and obviously Matt Rule is number 1, but Frank Reich was, I think, number 2 or 3 in the odds right now, which
it's
shocked
possible.
me. I don't think it is possible.
Is Jim Irsay even like sentient enough to even recognize what's happening right now and make that move?
Well, I thought he was a good coach. Like I held him in like a decently high regard. Same. So like when I saw that, like I was like, oh man, that seems wrong to have him that high. But do you think that's a possibility? Because that didn't even cross my mind until I saw those odds.
No, like Matt just said, like they have a weak armed quarterback. They have a bad offensive line. They have no explosive weapons. They have Jonathan Taylor, and that's it. Like, I don't know how he's supposed to cobble a good offense together out of this.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was, I wish I could fade odds because I just don't think that's happening. But I will say, like, they have been a good run defense. They have a weird stat. They're first in the league in tackles for loss right now. And they've only had 16 pressures. They have 14 tackles for loss and 16 pressures through 2 weeks, according to Sports Info Solutions, which is a wild stat that their run defense has been pretty good so far, and they haven't been able to get pressure, which is super weird considering they employ Yannick Ngakoue. But yeah, I don't know. They're just kind of a weird team. I think that they can level out because I do think they've got a lot of fine. I think Pittman and Pierce is fine if it's healthy. I think Matt Ryan can be fine. I think the defense, like Gus Bradley, we all know what he is. I think he could put like a fine defense out there. I think it can all be baseline and they can rise to like kind of that middle, like 6 to 9 win type of tier of a team. And maybe that wins this division. But yeah, overall, I agree with all of you that it's just not a good team.
Not looking good.
They're getting blown out this weekend, though. Gus Bradley versus Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be,
Oh, well, yeah. We saw. I had some stat about what Herbert and Mahomes did against the Raiders last season. Last season in 4 games, they threw like 15 touchdowns to 1 pick and like 1,400 yards in 4 games. Oh, my God.
Ideal.
But I digress. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at OddsTrader. For play-by-play updates, live scores, and bet tracking, OddsTrader is the place to go. They have the best price on every game and sign-up offers from multiple sportsbooks. Plus, they have player statistics, key game stats, and even projected game day weather. You can use their bet tracker to keep records of all your games and betting activity. OddsTrader.com is the #1 site for all your game day bets. To begin your handicapping journey, make sure to go to oddstrader.com/bluewire. OddsTrader is the beginning of your best bets for all sports. So, download from the App Store today.
I guess we should move on to another team that is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, that are doing everything that, we kind of thought they would do, the Buffalo Bills. What is the solution to stopping this team? I mean, they just look totally unbeatable.
What is preventing them from going 17-0?
Seriously,
what does their loss look like?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Because like when Josh Allen is doing this, it's the best offense in the NFL. And I don't know what the answer is. Like schematically, I don't know what I would do. I don't like when you play man coverage, he's going to scramble all game.
Yeah.
You play zone, like it's not going to work. Like
you're gonna man up Stephon Diggs,
right?
Ramsey tried that, didn't work.
It's I don't know. I think it's Josh Allen getting hurt is the only answer. But I really think you have to win a shootout. Yeah. You have to beat them like the Chiefs beat them last year if they're going like this. And I think the Chiefs are capable of doing that. I think the Chargers are capable of doing that. I want to see a defense challenge them a little more than they've been challenged the last 2 weeks, especially the Rams game. I thought the Rams played really soft and like just made things so easy on Allen and the receivers.
How? So what do you mean by that? Like soft, like just playing too much zone and not bringing blitzes, or
like a lot of quarters they weren't disrupting routes. They're giving up the underneath stuff, which is like a strategy that has worked against Allen because sometimes he like loses his mind and does a dumb play. But I think those instances aren't happening enough anymore for that to be a viable strategy. I think you have to be able to man them up. And I don't know what teams in the league have the skills or the players to do that. I assumed like if any team had it, it was the Rams, but they didn't play man. Like maybe Belichick. I think Belichick might be like the only hope for the league. They're not going to beat the Bills, but maybe he throws out like a game plan that kind of works and like a better team picks it up and uses it against them. That's the only way I think it happens.
Bill Belichick, please save us. I think of it, I'm like, oh, what are the weaknesses to this team? Yeah, I mean, the secondary, like, thank God that Dane Jackson is okay after getting, like, ambulanced off the field. But, like, with his injury, I mean, they were thin to begin with, is like, but, like, again, you can play a scheme with those safeties where the corners don't even really matter, which is right. Like if you just play them in zone, all of a sudden any kind of deep route just gets passed off to their incredible safety duo. So it's like, man, dude, like, come on,
what do you do?
And there's no like busted coverages like Baltimore this last week. They don't bust anything. Like everything is perfect.
Yeah, that's because Baltimore plays like these like crazy. I saw like plays where Odafe Owe is on the first Tyreek Hill touchdown. Like Odafe Owe is dropping into coverage and Patrick Queen, and they've got two defensive backs blitzing.
Right, yeah.
The Bills don't do that shit.
Stat.
They just line up like with.
They play real football.
They just line up with like four like even front 4 guys and just like against the Rams just didn't even blitz. We're just
I would love to see a stat on like who has the most simulated pressures. Or like who attempts the most simulated pressures.
I have that stat actually.
You do?
Really? Let me guess.
Yeah, it's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it Kansas City? Do they do it?
No.
No,
The top team is kind of obvious, but it's not like a team that you're going to think of because they're not relevant.
Oh, is it the Giants?
No, it's the
With
Falcons.
Wink?
Dean
Pease.
okay.
Yeah, Dean Pease will do it. Pease.
And the Cardinals are second.
Oh, duh.
It has not worked. It has not worked for Arizona at all.
That's why I said attempted. I'm like, a lot of these teams, it might not work for them. But
Week 1 against the Chiefs was one of my favorite, like, disaster, because it's like they have no pass, like, they don't have Juice's pass rusher. All Vance Joseph does is splits, and that's like the one thing you can't do versus Patrick Mahomes. That was like one of my favorite. It's like, are they actually going to do this? And when they did, it was just so funny. It was so funny. But yeah, no, Arizona DPs makes sense. Wink hasn't. Do you have the stats? Has Wink done it as much this year? It seems like he has not.
Let me bring it up.
I guess we could talk a little bit about the Giants. I actually don't want to talk about the Giants.
he doesn't want to talk about the
They're 2-0. Giants fans are so mad at me because I had them winning like 3.
Apologize to the Giants.
Apologize to the Giants.
2 games,
I had them in 2 games. They won 2 already.
115.
It's like I will apologize when this team is good because
hey,
I said
this
they'd
year's
be bad,
Bengals,
they're bad.
they're going to go to the Super Bowl and they're going to lose to the Buffalo Bills.
Richie James is Jamar Chase.
Giants are
Jones
fifth.
is-
They're fifth.
They're 5th in simulated pressures. All right. Okay. Well, good for Wink. But the Dolphins come to town and they're going to try to beat them. And obviously that offense has looked incredibly well, maybe not incredibly dynamic because they scored 1 touchdown week 1, but they've looked scary at times this season, and they've got the skill positions are everything we ever dreamed they would be. Do you anticipate Tua and these Dolphins with these weapons maybe getting in a shootout with the Bills? And what is the path to victory there? And do you think they can pull it off?
I think there is a possibility because like we said earlier, this is a scheme that doesn't really rely on its corners because those safeties are so good. But I think the one way you can attack it is the linebackers. It's not like they're bad linebackers, but you have, like, relatively speaking, that's their weakness on the defense just because everyone else is so good. And if there's a team that's going to do that in like a scheme that's going to be able to put those linebackers in conflict, I think it is like a Shanahan, Mike McDaniel type scheme. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get some throws over the middle, which is something that teams haven't been able to do on Buffalo yet. They've only given up 2 completions on throws in between the numbers over 10 air yards, but I think that's going to change this week. So it's really like a good test for both sides, like the Bills defense, who hasn't, like, they played like a Matt Stafford didn't look right in week 1, and then I don't know what Ryan Tannehill was doing on Monday. So this is like a real good test. Like, this is like the best offense I think they've played, and it's a real good test for the Bills or the Dolphins because they're not going to be busting coverages, and I think that score line looks a lot different in week 2 if they don't get those 2 long balls to Tyreek Hill. Because those plays came on 3rd and 8. It's not like the Dolphins offense was moving the ball. It was 3rd and 8 and they got busted coverages. So we know Buffalo's not going to do that. Buffalo's going to make it hard. So I do think it's a good test for both sides.
I agree. Let's see. What am I going to say about this game? I think that the offensive line, I worry that the Dolphins offensive line is just not going to allow them to do anything because they've looked a little rough over these first 2 weeks. And the Bills have got this crazy pass rush. So you might be able to game plan or scheme up this crazy, McDaniels might have some genius moment, but like it might just
let me say this. I don't think
blown up.
I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. I think like there's a path that the Dolphins could win, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to get the doors blown off of them.
Okay.
Because Sean McDermott is so good at making like quarterbacks that are limited look limited. We saw that in the Buffalo games last year when he made Mac Jones look like Mac Jones. I think he's going to do that to Tua.
How dare you call Tua limited? He just threw 6 touchdowns. I'll have you know.
Did you see how many passing yards he had?
Did you see how many? You're acting like he didn't just throw 6 touchdowns. Yeah, I think where are you at the Dolphins? So maybe they lose this game, but overall with Tua, and this offense, the defense did. I mean, Lamar Jackson did kind of go scorched earth on them. Xavier Howard gave up a big play to Bateman. How do you feel about these Dolphins, I guess? Do you think they can be a playoff team in this AFC? Do you think Tua can be good enough that these weapons can carry him there? Or are there just too many weaknesses, the offensive line, the quarterback and whatnot?
Yeah, I picked them to make the wild card, and I feel good about that. I didn't expect them to win in week 2, but it was more just who's left over because the AFC West, I think, is going to cannibalize itself, and I don't think the Broncos or Raiders are that good anyway. But I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Tua, but I think he's good enough to play like the Jimmy G role like the caretaker of the offense. And I think he's better than Jimmy almost. I think he has a chance to be at least this year. Yeah. And I was skeptical of Mike McDaniel, but after 2 weeks, I'm sold, or as sold as I could be after 2 weeks. Like no notes. Like it's been perfect for 2 weeks.
It's been perfect. Speaking of Garoppolo, we didn't talk about this on the last podcast, so I'm going to bring it up now. Let's say the 49ers make it to the NFC Championship game again, and Jimmy is like borderline top 10 in passing EPA and DVOA or whatever, like he's been. Do you stick with Trey Lance or do you trade him?
No, I'm trading Jimmy. I don't care. I'm letting him walk or whatever. I'm driving him to the airport. We know what Jimmy is. And like, there's a reason why you stopped at NFC title game, because we all know what happens next.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I was thinking about that. I'm a big Trey Lance fan. I don't know where you're at with him, but I think that he's quite good, or at least could be quite good. But man, like, what is like 3 years without like really playing any real football? It's just a long time. But
it's scary.
It's extremely scary, but you're right that Jimmy G is also not a guy that you want to roll with as a franchise quarterback, but maybe you could draft another one with the picks that you could get from Lance. I have no idea what the future of San Francisco looks like, because there's been so many rumors and so many, like, they don't like that Lance that much anyway, which I don't really believe, but like the longer we go without really seeing what he can do, like I think the more of a risk he is to put in there as a franchise quarterback. Matt,
and we still haven't seen anyone from this coaching tree develop a quarterback yet.
Yeah,
it's never happened. No, Shanahan hasn't done it. McVay hasn't really done it. LaFleur hasn't had to do it. Like, let's see one do it.
Yeah.
The 49ers are still missing their first rounder this next year. This is the last one. They're not going to do that and then give up on Lance. He's starting next year, and he's missed, but like a lot of time. But I mean, he's 22 right now. He also was like the youngest quarterback I can ever remember being drafted.
He's the most inexperienced player in the league. Like, there's no one in the league who has played less football than him, I think. Yeah. Unless there's some guy like Moritz Ringer that I didn't hear about on some practice squads.
Right. No, you're probably, I'm pretty sure you're right about that.
Barring rugby players. Yeah.
Barring like the rugby experiments that the Eagles are bringing in or whatever. Yeah. But I thought that we didn't touch on that in the last episode. I thought that was kind of an interesting hypothetical.
I think the real frustrating part about it is like the time to really strike when you draft those rookies is those last few years of their rookie contract, when they've gotten that experience and they're finally good enough, but you're still paying them that cheap contract. Now that window is very short. In the last couple of years of his rookie contract, he's going to be, just now getting on the field. And if he's not up to speed by the time they have to give him a new contract, or he gets up to speed right as they have to give him a new contract, you're going to miss out on a lot of that advantage.
Yeah. And I would say, like, even if he gets that Mahomes behind the scenes development where he's not playing, but he still improves, like, you still have to play in the games and play in playoff games to kind of like learn from mistakes. And he's not going to have that. And that could show up like when it matters in the NFC Championship.
Right.
Yeah. Well, should we go into the game of the week?
Might as well. Who should go first? Should we have the guest go first?
Sure.
I'll go first.
I haven't looked yet.
What's your favorite game of this week?
I'm going Jaguars Chargers.
Okay.
For the reasons we already talked about Trevor Lawrence. And I think like I said, when I watched that tape last week, I saw Justin Herbert. So I want to see those two like go head to head and kind of like compare them. I think we come out of this week thinking, oh shit, like Trevor Lawrence is legit. Like everyone does, not just people that like him.
That would be awesome. That would be really cool. Let's see. It's always fun to just watch Herbert too.
We're getting some rough games this week looking at.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's tough.
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, hell of a quarterback matchup.
You don't like the Carson Wentz revenge game?
As a Browns fan, I will not tolerate Browns Steelers primetime game slander.
Mitch Trubisky. How much longer till Pickett's in there? I know Tomlin said they're going the full year, but that can't possibly be what they're going to do.
You have to try something.
Steven, you had a tweet that killed me where it was a screenshot of where Trubisky hasn't thrown it, and you said that's like the whole field.
His like map of completions is like bare. It's like all like 5 yards and underneath.
There's like nothing. I will say, just for the sake of being different.
Oh God.
I don't know. I have no idea. This is rough. I'm going to say Packers, Buccaneers. I'll say that. I'll say these are two teams that could be at the top of the NFC. I'm a Packers fan, so it'll be maybe some time to exercise some demons against Tom Brady's Buccaneers, who I believe that we've played twice and lost twice against. But the Buccaneers' offense has really been poor over these past 2 weeks. Really, one of the bottom offenses in the league, which is unusual considering you've got Brady there. And the Packers defense is, has the potential to kind of melt people's faces off. So I think that this can kind of be a statement win for the Packers after coming out slow week 1. Obviously, like they do. They had a nice win last week. And then against the Buccaneers, I think like there's a world where we're talking about Brady like, whoa, this has been 3 straight bad games on the offense. Like let's kind of like readjust our expectations. I think there's a very real chance where we're talking about, maybe we'll talk about, is Trevor Lawrence better than Tom Brady after this week? Maybe there's a world.
I'm ready to have that.
Let's talk about, we are going to
put Trevor Lawrence on the TB12 method and see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah,
just eat his nuts and berries, and
I don't believe.
Yeah, that's what's boosting Tom Brady, the nuts and berries.
Yes, Tom Brady eats strawberries, dude. I've seen too many pictures of him like getting ice cream with Giselle that I'm like, you are lying so hard. He's like,
like another 45-year-old try to not eat strawberries and see if you can go play quarterback in the NFL.
Right, like that is
not the
true.
diet.
He's like, I never drink, and then there's like videos of him getting like carried off the boat at the Super Bowl conversation.
He was literally like,
I know what you are,
blackout drunk at the Super Bowl parade.
I know what you are. Yeah. I think it can be a statement win for the Packers. I'm someone who famously bets against them whenever it could be a toss-up, so I'm either right or happy. But this time I'm gonna be optimistic and say I'm looking forward to this statement Packers win in the Tom Brady downfall dialogue. I'll say that.
Fair enough. I'm personally a fan of picking upsets. So that's why this week I'm picking the Detroit Lions to upset the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay.
The Vikings are favored by 6, but I think this will be a really, really fun game. The Lions have looked at, like on the offensive line, have looked really, really good.
They've scored 35 points in three straight games.
Bro, right. They look awesome. I mean, Goff looked like a legit quarterback last week. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Listen, the Vikings corners are the one part of that defense that I do not feel comfortable. Like Cam Dantzler and a washed Patrick Peterson. Like that doesn't scare me, man. I think the Lions offense could have a bit of a field day. I think that could be a game they win, especially like if Okudah really keeps looking like he could actually be a good corner. Like this could be a good game for them. Okudah versus Justin Jefferson. I want to see Okudah lock down Justin Jefferson one-on-one.
Sadly, I loved Okudah at Ohio State. He's one of my favorite Ohio State players ever. I can't believe his turnaround is unbelievable. He was coming off an Achilles, right?
Yeah. I mean,
and he was playing terrible before then. So it wasn't like he should be in the running for comeback player of the year, if anything, if he comes off an Achilles and gets better.
Yeah.
Sadly, you're discounting the fact that this is a noon slate Kirk Cousins performance, and he's going to drop 450 yards and 5 touchdowns in this game.
Well, I guess Goff just has to match him. This is going to be like that Chiefs-Rams game from 2018, except it's going to be Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins at midday. But yeah, I think that.
I can't believe Jared Goff was actually in that game.
I know.
It still doesn't feel real to this day.
That was
yeah. I think this will be a fun game.
I think Goff and Cousins had like a game like that on like a Thursday night. It was like Rams Vikings, and they were just like throwing dimes back and forth. It was like the weirdest game that's ever happened.
Yes, it was the Goff him game. He was like had a perfect passer rating and like a 99.9 QBR in that game. Have you? I don't know, Steve. I have not watched much of the Lions offense, even though I know that they're putting up good results. I don't know, Steven, if you know anything about what they're doing schematically to to get Goff so successful? Because I always think of Dan Campbell as like this rah culture guy, and maybe not so much of a scheme guy. But I don't know if you've watched them at all. This is not on the script to what they're doing to make them so successful. Or is it just maybe as simple as they have a good offensive line?
I think it's the offensive line and how they're like using it. They're running like a bunch of different run concepts. Like they're running zone stuff, they're running power stuff, they're running traps, they're doing all that stuff. And I just think it makes the play action passing game easier. And when you get Goff can do that. If you give Goff a clean pocket and an open receiver, he's going to hit it. So I think that's what they're doing. And I agree that they're going to upset the Vikings because the Vikings try to get away with playing light boxes. And I don't think you can do that against this team.
Yeah. I could definitely see it, but I'm going to bet on noon. I'm going to bet on noon game. I'm going to bet on noon game.
Justin
Cousins.
Jefferson returns.
I'm going to bet on Justin Jefferson beating. Well, they're not going to play man on Justin Jefferson most likely with Jeff Okudah, so I don't think that's going to be like a one-on-one.
Okudah's like that. Trust.
I'll have to watch him. I haven't really paid attention. But Matt, what is your game of the week here?
I'll probably go. I'm going to be super lame and go Bills Miami. I mean, right now the Tua narratives are the funniest thing going on. I'm always rooting for Twitter to be funny, and almost no matter how Tua plays in this game, I'm just rooting for him to be great or awful, one of the two. I mean, if Tua would put up like, another like 4 touchdown game or whatever, your Twitter mentions would be the best. So
yeah,
that's what I'm also a big Bills guy. So I was looking at some of the lines though, and I can tell you the bet of the week is Saints -3. I cannot believe that's the line. I know they've looked bad. That team has the Panthers number to an unbelievable extent. They're winning that game by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, they looked horrible last week. They've got Jameis on a broken back. I don't know, dude.
Just put Hill in there. Put Andy Dalton in there at this point.
Their defense was good, though. Their defense was good, though, and I don't think Baker Mayfield's going to do anything to that defense.
You don't have to worry about Baker Mayfield, I promise you.
Baker, yeah. And yeah, that's a crate. The Panthers, I mean, they've got DJ Moore, and that's it, dude. Like, it's crazy, their weapons, and like looking how many targets like Shi Smith is getting. And like Derek Klassen had a tweet where it's like they're the worst passing offense to watch because maybe they're like not the absolute bottom tier in terms of talent. Like maybe you could talk yourself into DJ Moore and Baker, but they're just the most underwhelming. Like, yeah, we'll see. They're going to put Lattimore on DJ Moore, and then we're going to try to see. They're going to get beat.
Robbie Anderson.
They're going to ask Robbie Anderson to beat him.
Maybe they'll play Higgins or Terrence Marshall Jr., but probably not.
If you know that Baker Higgins connection, it's lightning in a bottle.
Shut up.
We're seeing PJ Walker by the third quarter.
I mean, I feel like you have to earn the Hollywood nickname. Doesn't he call himself Hollywood?
He is Hollywood. The red carpet, like, come on.
You have to earn that. He hasn't earned it.
He had it in Cleveland. In Cleveland, I think he had earned it a little bit. The red carpet celebration, Baker spinning with like the camera. That was cool.
I mean, that's probably a top 10 Browns moment in their history, so I can see why you'd think that. But I'll throw one more out there as we're just killing time. But I'll say Cardinals-Rams just because I think that those two teams are like disasters kind of waiting to happen. Like they're two teams kind of waiting to implode. And I'm really low on the Rams. I had them like with a losing record. And like their offensive line is like the Rams will probably win this one just because the Cardinals like really suck. But I think that that game specifically could kind of be the like potential to implode, like playoff team with the potential to totally implode bowl. Like there's just no good secondary players outside of Ramsey on the Rams, and their offensive line I think it sucks so bad. And we'll see. Stafford was really good against the blitz last year, and the Cardinals are going to test him again to see if that's true. So I'm curious to see how he performs against the blitz with a much worse offensive line. So I'll say that one just as like, we'll see if we can finally put these, like the Cardinals eked out a win to avoid totally like a collapse. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if we can just write one of these two teams off, and it'll probably be the Cardinals, but it could also be the Rams. I don't know, but
I feel like Sean McVay is doing the quiet quitting thing. Like there was like a quote. There was a quote after the game. He was like, "Yeah, in the past I would have been mad that we gave up a bunch of points and almost blew the lead, but now I'm not." Like, okay, like I don't think he cares anymore. He was like playing Ben Skoranek at fullback. He's just like, fuck it, just winging it.
Yeah, it was kind of easy to see maybe a Super Bowl hangover coming when like McVay, like Aaron Donald turned in the paperwork to retire and Sean McVay was like this close to doing TV. So we'll see. The Cardinals did a decent job against Kupp last year. I remember that, where Kupp's like 2 worst games, which was like 10 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown last year. They were against the Cardinals. So maybe I watched the Cardinals versus Raiders game to see what they were doing to Devontae Adams last week. And I thought Byron Murphy did like a decent job on him. So that'll be maybe interesting to watch. Is more, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws to try to lengthen this thing. So
watch the game to see Sean McVay fight off a Super Bowl hangover while Cliff Kingsbury fights off an actual hangover.
That's a good way to put it. But yeah, that's about all I got. Maybe the 49ers against the Broncos offense and just seeing how bad Hackett can possibly get. That's another thing that kind of intrigues me. It's just the Hackett disaster classes, but who knows? I'm just talking to talk.
Poor Hackett. So. I feel bad for Hackett. I'm sorry. Yeah. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I do. I feel bad for him a little bit. You know,
Hackett's not a head coach. They asked him. They were like, "Do you feel like you're a real head coach, or just that you snuck in here?" And he said, "Ha! Like I just snuck in here." He's like, "I don't feel like a head coach at all."
Bro's got imposter syndrome, except he's actually an imposter.
Dude, he's got imposter syndrome, but it's not a syndrome. Yeah, I didn't know anything about him, even though I'm a Packers fan and he was on the Packers. Like, he didn't seem to have much to do with anything. So, like, once the Broncos hired him, I watched him mic'd up from him, and I was like, then and there, I knew that he wasn't a head coach. Like, I don't want my head coach giving any substitute teacher vibes. I don't want him quoting Anchorman. I'm sorry. Bill Belichick would never do that. And that's all Hackett does. Like, imagine coming off this brutal loss or like a loss to the Seahawks where your coach fucked up and he comes in and is like, got an Austin Powers themed PowerPoint or Kahoot. You'd be like, what are we doing? This is not high school. And that's what he is. He's like a high school
just
gym
throw
teacher.
A touchdown, baby.
Yeah, that's literally, he's like, touchdown, or we got to get all those touchdown Rooskies. It's like, get off Reddit and start coaching football and like be a real dude. So he could get fired mid-season, man, and I'd be like, good move.
His resume is so bad. I don't know how he got the job. Like he like watched YouTube videos with Aaron Rodgers and somehow that got him a job.
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
I remember listening to this interview with like Blake Bortles and Blake Bortles was like, yeah, he was always the guy that we would like, he had a tiny closet in the back of the facility. And whenever we wouldn't like what the head coach was calling, we'd go vent to him and then told a story about how he'd like made him dress up as Austin Powers and like make a video. That's what Blake Bortles' stories about Nathaniel Hackett was. So I was like, this guy is unserious. So I think the 49ers could do terrible, terrible, terrible things to like what is clearly a head coach out of his league. I feel a little bit bad for him because he's such like a jolly fellow. And like the fans are like counting down like the play clock. And he's like, and Russ had this quote and he was like, I told Hackett, man, like chin up. It's your first win. You got to celebrate it. So like the thought of him like winning his first game and just being like devastated is like, and you know, he's like the cute substitute teacher that you had is like, oh, that's a sad mental image. But at the same time, it's like, let's get serious here. You have a first time defensive play caller and you brought in Dom Capers to like tell him what to do. Like, get out of here with all that. But anyway. I don't know how much that's my whole Hackett rant, which I've done like weekly on this podcast for like 3 weeks.
Theo's weekly Nathaniel Hackett slander.
Hackett likes Austin Powers too much rant. Anyway.
Oh, well, it's okay. Well, that pretty much wraps things up with you know, unless you want to stick around for the Stay Hot locks.
I got no locks. No. I've never won a bet.
Never?
No, I've won bets before.
Okay. Bro is 0-40 in bets.
Like, are you up this year? Are you up in your betting so far?
No, I've lost every NFL bet. I've only done like 4, but I've lost every one of them. That was not a bit. No, I've lost every bet this season. I won some college games, but that's it.
Okay. That's good enough.
I predicted like 5 games correctly last week. What I've started doing is making my game picks. I'll post it on my story on TikTok so they'll disappear after 24 hours. and I posted on Thursday before the Thursday game, so no one could ever go back and look at what I did. That's how I get my picks content out, and I'm glad I did it this week because I picked like so many upsets and none of them happened. But anyway, I think that about does it for our Steven segment.
Yes,
Steven segment.
I will back out.
Yeah.
Thank you so
right,
much.
guys.
Where can we find you? Where can we find you on social media?
On theringer.com, on Twitter at the Steven Ruiz, Steven with the V, the right way to spell it. That's
Not
I have a brother named Steven.
Navy RDC if you want to come find me. Some guy DM'd me and told me that he's been walking around my neighborhood trying to run into me. I didn't answer, but now
that's a little terrifying. I can't.
Yeah, now I'm afraid I'm going to get murdered one of these days. Hopefully he's not a Joe Burrow guy.
Well, you still have him top 10 in your quarterback lists at number 10, so you can.
That's just to make the fall all the sweeter when I drop him out of the top 20 in a couple weeks. But all right, guys,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on, man. If you watch football, you need Fubo TV. Fubo TV gives you complete coverage of college and pro football with NFL Red Zone plus games in 4K at no extra charge. Over 100 channels of live sports and entertainment for a fraction of the price of cable. Watch on all your devices and never miss a game or episode of your favorite TV shows with cloud-based DVR. Plus, there's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. Right now, you can try Fubo TV free for 7 days and get 15% off your first month. Just go to FuboTV.com/stayhot. That's FUBOTV.com/stayhot.
Once again, huge thanks to Steven Ruiz for joining us. Absolute pleasure to have him on. We're going to hop into our Stay Hot locks real quick. And the current score is Matt has 0, Theo has 1, I have 2. So that means, Matt, you have the first pick, Theo, you have the second pick, and I will have the third pick. The rule of the Stay Hot locks are this, for those that are new. Basically, we get any number. You can lock any number of teams that you want, but if any of those teams lose, you get 0 points for the week. And if all of them win, you get 1 point for each team that won. If any of them tie, you don't lose points, but you also don't gain points for a tie. So those are pretty much the rules. Once Matt and Theo lock a team, I cannot lock the same team. That's why we're doing draft styles that way. Once someone gets ahead, they can't just keep cooking.
Can't pick the same team over and over again.
Because that's what Theo did last year.
That's not what I did. That's what I could have done. I didn't actually do that.
You basically did
what?
That.
No, I did not.
You copied me.
I didn't copy you. Well, just a lot of times.
Me.
The locks are the kind of obvious, like
that's
just
true.
sort by.
We did all just kind of like lock the same team.
Like obviously, when the Chiefs play the Giants, like you're gonna lock the Chiefs, and we'd all do that. So we just kind of ended with the same teams. And once you were up, there was no use in me taking any risks because I couldn't lose.
As
but anyway,
opposed to like us, we were taking risks left and right.
Now we can't repeat teams in it. You have to go a little bit deeper in your bag to catch up. But Matt, who got you last week? Was it Bengals? Did you pick the Bengals over the Cowboys?
Yeah, those darn Bengals. I almost had a backdoor cover. It would have been awesome because I had the Broncos too, which is a terrible pick. But
it's okay.
I don't know this week. I don't really love any of these games, man.
Well, there was one that you just said.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
I'm not. That's bad luck. See, here's the thing. You know how you don't bet on your team because you want them to win?
Yeah.
I don't want the Panthers to win right now. So I'm not going to bet on the Saints to win. And then I want the Panthers because the Panthers' problem right now is I keep taking these like half measures at quarterback. I want them to get a high pick and take a quarterback. I'm so sick of this dude. So I'm not betting. I'm not betting on the Saints. I'm taking.
I respect it. I guess.
I'm sorry. Like everyone's
like
this.
The reverse Packers
culture.
logic. Yeah, it's my Packers logic, but reverse. Yeah,
oh,
okay.
It's bad for the culture, bro. We got to always go out there and win. No, we don't, dude. This is how we won 5 games 3 years in a row. I'm split between the Chiefs, locking the Chiefs and locking the Bills. There's no way Indianapolis turns it around against the Chiefs, right? That's the team they figured out against.
I would say that's probably true.
All right.
Especially is Pittman back?
He's questionable. So's Pierce.
Does it matter?
I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Bills too, but like after the performance that Hill and Waddle had,
yeah, there's a world.
I think both those teams will win, but I'll go Chiefs because I'm a little bit lower on the Colts.
Okay.
Yeah, unless maybe there's like a Taylor masterclass, but like Patrick Mahomes literally like sliced and diced. Like we talked about the Gus Bradley defense, like the 2 games against the Raiders last year, like he must have combined for like 600, 700 yards. So yeah, I think that's a good pick. I'm going to take the Saints then. Maybe I won't because they don't have a quarterback. Like they don't have a quarterback that I really trust.
Is Andy Dalton going to play, or is it going to be Jameis?
They put in Taysom Hill before they put in Andy Dalton.
Betting on a team without a
Andy, dude. I'm sorry.
Betting on a team without a quarterback is always risky for the locks. We learned that with the Bengals last week. I'm sorry, but there's been so much Burrow slander on this show. He's still good, but yeah, I'll probably say the Saints just because I don't think the Panthers are going to move the ball against this defense. I really think that Marshawn Lattimore can do some good things to mitigate DJ Moore. And then once that happens, there's just not a lot of answers for the Panthers, and they haven't even really been spamming DJ Moore this year at all either. So DJ Moore is right. Like he hasn't been moving the needle
Robbie
too
Anderson's
much.
Leading receiver right now.
Yeah. So that's what teams are doing is they're probably like I have a full disclosure. I have not watched like a single second of the Panthers this year. But I would assume teams are like bracketing more and having someone else beat them. And there's just, I guess there's McCaffrey, but I just think
the Panthers have not been feeding McCaffrey much.
He has 25 carries right now.
Right. It's 25 carries in 2 weeks, and you can't feed him because he'll get hurt. So they just don't have answers on offense. They don't have someone they can lean on. And against the Saints defense, like I would bet the under in this game. Whatever it is, I'd bet the under. But I don't know.
It's 40.5.
So this game's not going 21 to 20. This game's going 14 to 10.
We learned you're just betting for the Saints to get 17 points. 1-25 and 17 plus point games for the Panthers.
They've got Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara's coming back. Like I have faith that if the Daniel Jones led Giants can beat this Panthers team, the Saints can. So yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, I'm betting on a Michael Thomas like masterclass. So yeah, I can get behind that. I have 2 picks back to back. First one, got to rock with my boys, the Philadelphia Eagles. They are playing Washington. They have probably the best offensive line in football right now. Their run game is terrifying. Jalen Hurts looked like an MVP against the Vikings. They beat them by 17? I think they can beat Washington pretty soundly. And then I want to take the Bills too. I feel like we all want to do it, but I still get like flashbacks of Tyreek Hill like cutting through the entire Bills defense and then leaving Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer in the dust as like the last 2 guys like trying to chase him down, and they just had no chance. Oh man, this is tough for me. I'm stuck between Buffalo and Baltimore. That's where I'm stuck right now. Because I think I don't know if the Patriots have the ammo on defense to stand with Lamar and Mark Andrews and the way that Bateman looked. I just don't think they have the guys to do it. So
they've got the coach to do it.
They got the coach to do it though, right? Shit, man. This is tough for me.
The Patriots defense has not been bad. They allowed one touchdown against the Dolphins, one offensive touchdown. And granted, Tua, like I said, missed like 4 huge plays in that game.
And Lamar's not missing those.
But they have looked good. And then they played the Steelers, and Mitch Trubisky isn't a real person.
Yeah.
So,
but the offense has looked bad.
It's looked
right, and it's like if there's any team where like the Ravens defense doesn't actually need to like have their shit together, like this could probably be the one. Yeah, I'll go Philadelphia and Baltimore. Those will be my 2.
All right,
fair enough.
I'm gonna go with the Raiders against the Titans.
Oh,
I don't hate that one.
Okay.
I don't hate that one. They just traded for a tackle. I don't know who it was, but good on them because I watched the Raiders last week and their right tackle, whoever replaced Leatherwood, like it made me think that they shouldn't have replaced Leatherwood. That's how bad he was. I mean, he sucks. So the fact that they brought in a tackle, I think is smart. I mean, they've been kind of knocking on the door to victory these past 2 weeks. Like they didn't know how to play with a lead. I don't know what was going on like in the second half of that game, but like they should have had that one. And then they hung with the Chargers week 1. It wasn't any kind of Chargers blowout. It makes me think that they're a decent team that's had a little bit of a bad run these first 2 weeks. But I don't think they're like the typical 0-2 caliber squad. The Titans, on the other hand, with losses to the Giants and then getting the snot beaten out of them by the Bills. I mean, everything you worried about with this Titans team has come true. There's started Caleb Farley out there and he's gotten torched. Like their second, like there's just too many holes on defense. They've got Jeffrey Simmons, but like and Byard, there's some nice pieces.
Was Hassan Haskins last game. Man.
This is a warning to anyone like scouting corners. You cannot just pick like hyper athletic guys.
Well,
what's your thoughts on Tyreek Woolen?
Yeah,
bro, bro was like a 7th round pick or something.
And it still worked out. But
hey,
they took Caleb Farley in the first round, and he had like a broken back.
You can take Caleb. I have nothing wrong with just betting on traits, but traits that hadn't played in a long time because of the COVID year, and then had a back injury. Doesn't seem to be going well for him so far. I don't trust their secondary. I don't trust Tannehill. I don't trust the receivers, although Burks has looked all right. Like there's just not a lot of firepower on this team. I think the Raiders I just think they have a lot more firepower. I think the Titans are just legit bad. I think the Raiders, they might get last in this division. They might be a mediocre team, but they're not horrible. And I think the Titans are really knocking on the door of horrible. And yeah, so I'm going to take
Derek Carr is better than Tannehill. Devontae is better than all of the receivers combined, probably.
Yeah, they've got Max. Yeah. They've got Max Crosby. They've got Nate Hobbs has looked decent. Like they're a talented team. They're a talented team. The Titans, I just don't know if they are a talented team at this point. So I've just repeated myself a bunch of times. But Matt, you're up next.
I'll take the Bills. Yeah. They're the best team in football.
Oh, I forgot that Blade didn't take the Bills. Oops.
Yeah, I took Baltimore. I thought about taking the Bills.
And then I'm done.
And then I was hoping they came back around to me and I could get them again, but now Matt was probably going to take them.
You're done?
I'll just take the Bills, Chiefs.
I'm going to take the Bengals. I'll take the Bengals. We've slandered Joe Burrow so much. We've been so low on them.
Apologize to Joey B.
But
to Joe.
As
Joe
a gesture,
for
as a gesture of apology to the Bengals fans and Burrow, and saying that he sucks, that he's not as good as Lawrence. I don't think he sucks. I think they can beat the Jets. I thought
the Browns.
This is a heartwarming olive branch you've extended.
This is a heartwarming
right now,
olive. Yeah, I know. You can't hate me. I think Burrow is good. He's going to beat the Jets. All right. I think that. I think they'll get some things figured out this week. I think they need to, and I think Burrow will rise to the occasion a little bit. I think this is where Sauce Gardner allows his first touchdown on T. Higgins, a Matthew Spanauer disaster class.
That would be like worst case scenario for you, Matt.
He's fight, dude. I mean, you saw last game? Like he was fighting for his life to keep that thing alive.
It'll be T. Higgins on Sauce Gardner in the second quarter on a slant. They've got I don't know who's in the slot for them, but it's going
to be like a goal line fade.
No, it's going to be a Hayden Hurst. It's going to be a Hayden Hurst is going to pick him, and it's going to be man coverage on the goal line. Hayden Hurst picks him. It's not really Sauce's fault. He doesn't fight around it, but it is on him. If you can't fight around the Hayden Hurst pick, and T. Higgins comes wide open on the slant, they hit it at the second quarter. The Bengals grow their lead to 14-3. And they don't look back. The Jets don't have the firepower, even though Flacco is PFF's third highest graded quarterback right now. He doesn't have the juice to bring them back from this deficit. And they hold on. they don't fix all their problems. They don't score more than 30 points. They score maybe like 23 against the Jets defense here, and 24 maybe, and like maybe yeah. So that's what's gonna happen. It's final
Hayden
score.
Hurst wouldn't set a pick for T. Higgins. He went to South Carolina.
He'll
so they don't like
sabotage.
each other.
He'll sabotage Higgins.
He'll let Sauce Gardner get a pick 6.
Yeah, because he plays for the Bengals, and Sauce went to Cincinnati, so he has more
Right.
allegiance to Sauce and
Than he does
Cincinnati
to
than
the team that he actually plays
his
for.
college rival T. Higgins. Yes,
And then Garrett Wilson's going to have a whole bunch of yards too. It's
and then
awesome.
Garrett Wilson is going to
Tune into
Because
this one,
Eli
guys.
Apple just can't.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy. But
This
those
is
are
kind of an all Matt game here. There's a lot
It
of
is.
Matt narrative players in this.
It matters.
It's big for me.
But those are the Stay Hot locks. I imagine that I will extend my lead and continue to be the front runner to win it all this year. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But that pretty much wraps it up for the Stay Hot podcast. As always, tons of content coming on all platforms. Theo, did you drop your all 22 or no? Or
No,
is that
I was too sick,
sick.
and my voice
Okay.
was bad, and I didn't want to
Fair
have you.
enough.
Especially yesterday, I didn't want to hear you guys like Kyle Pitts. He really like no, that's not.
I think that would have been really funny, dude. If you had just been like crushed
Crushed,
recording
like,
the audio for that video. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't.
Could have been a funny meme.
It's like me talking for an hour, and like when I record those, it's like I mustered up the strength and the courage to talk in my 3-minute Tua video. I rose from my illness to slander Tua and say that everyone needs to fucking relax. But for like
Theo had COVID, and I played like 4 hours of basketball and football yesterday. So
congrats.
We're not the
some
same.
sort of flex. Like, oh, you're
Yeah.
well, you were sick in bed. I was out grinding. Okay.
yeah, by the end of the semester, I'm going to be able to dunk. Just wait.
You haven't gotten COVID yet, have you, Bladen?
Nope. I am undefeated against COVID.
Matt, you have,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I guess I'm next. But
sick boy. Yeah.
from sick boy, not sick boy, and also not sick boy, or not sick anymore boy.
He had COVID like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. From Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you all on the flippity flop.